Hi, everyone. This is Nikki Bostwick. I'm your host for the Fullest podcast. And our guest today is Rachelle Robinett, who's a clinical herbalist, holistic health practitioner, and founder of Supernatural, a cafe and company dedicated to real world plant based health. Hi, Rachelle.
Hi, so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to connect with you because I absolutely love your products. And I'm just such a huge fan of yours. So I'm excited to finally have you on the podcast. And yeah, I'm just really excited to hear about you from you and learn about what brought you to, becoming a holistic health practitioner and herbalist and kind of your foundation on what how you practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to dive in, or do you have a specific angle you want to
Yeah,
start with there?
dive in.
All
Just
right.
dive in and tell us what inspired you to become an herbalist.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I definitely didn't realize it, as I was growing up, that this was something that would be my future. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest on a farm and had parents in basically in Eastern and what's that?
What part of the Pacific Northwest? Because I lived in Oregon for a while, and my in-laws live in Seattle, so I'm super interested. Is it like Washington or Canada or what part?
Oh, yeah, I grew up in Washington in the Rainier Valley.
Cool, on a farm. That's so fun.
You know what? It's fun in retrospect, but as a kid, it's a limited amount of fun and a ton of work. At least our experience with it
Yeah,
was, lots of chores. Every single weekend, we were, outside all day long, just doing basically manual labor. And, it was beautiful. But as a kid, you're like, where are my friends? Where's the mall? Where's like,
yeah,
the social scene? Um, and so I was in that environment, and kind of unknowingly cultivating a very strong relationship with nature and a comfort with being outside and disconnected and growing our own food and, having animals. And my dad was an anesthesiologist, so always kind of learning about the effects of, in his case, pharmaceutical and medication and surgery and, Western medicine. And we even went to work with him a few times and got to see, in the operating room, see surgeries and really firsthand kind of experience what it was like to see a body kind of go through medicine. And then my mom is a dietitian and nutritionist. So on her side, and, and very sort of alternative medicine leaning and into supplements and, would take me to acupuncture if I wanted to try acupuncture, or the chiropractor, all these different things. And so, kind of unknowingly surrounded by a lot of the concepts that I would then later go on to work with. But my mission was to get the hell off of the farm and move to New York City and work in fashion. Like the
wow.
total opposite intentionally. That was my dream. And, long story short, that's what I did. And then, after working in fashion for several years and agencies and absolutely loving it and feeling like, I got to work with people that I had idolized. I got to do exactly the kinds of things that I had always hoped of doing, being on set, producing fashion shows, traveling around the world, like doing, just doing these dreams come true. And also, I mean, truly, just working your ass off. That's a really intense combination of industries
Exactly.
at ad agencies and fashion. But it got to
Yeah.
a point where I was like, I think this is good. I think I've checked the box. And it was very strange because I thought, my life would be fashion. And all of a sudden it felt like, no, actually, you did it. And so now what's next? And at the same time that I was kind of having those sensations and that thought was beginning, the wellness industry was becoming very, very popular. The trend was kind of starting. And all of my, life, even though I'd been in that industry, I had personally been, just obsessed with health and wellness always. So anything from my nutrition to supplements to, nutritional science to herbs, going on an ayahuasca retreat, stuff like that, a long time ago. And people kind of started to come to me as the person they knew that was like doing the wellness already. Like, oh, I'm starting to hear about this thing in the
Yeah.
mainstream, but I know Rachelle eats that really weird smoothie every day. Like, let's go talk to her about that, or about, this yoga retreat or whatever it was. And so it started to be sort of pulled out of me. It wasn't something that I wanted to make my career ever. I love it now, but it wasn't my intention. And people just started to ask, can you teach me? Can you coach me? Can you, tell me what your practice is? And again, long story short, I started to basically come out of the closet about my health and wellness, sort of passion or obsession, my personal practice. And over time, that turned into my full-time work. So from writing about it, then I produced a product line. Then I started coaching people. That turned into, in recent years, a cafe and a full, product line, and a great private practice, and a lot of teaching and speaking and that sort of thing. So I love it now, but I definitely didn't see it coming.
Yeah. So then where does the education come from? Obviously, it sounds like you've definitely educated yourself and you've had a lifelong passion and you grew up. And did you at the time decide, okay, I'm going to like dive in and take courses, or um
hmm
yeah, how did that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there was a ton, I mean, I would say 90% of what I do is self-taught and learned by doing, like having years now. I think it's been
Yeah.
5 or 6 years of seeing clients. So that's a ton of, foundation. But when I decided to transition my career full-time into wellness and herbalism, as, part of it, then I went back to get more sort of official schooling. So I had done lots of like
Yeah.
smaller certifications and apprenticeships and that kind of thing. But then I did study herbalism specifically, and complementary and integrative health specifically or broadly. And also I continue to do, even as I'm practicing, I continue to do more studies. So like right now I'm looking at going back and doing probably another 2-year program in herbalism, just because we can never know it all, So
This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic, a wellness company that is well known for its delicious mushroom coffee. Right now, chaga is my favorite functional mushroom, and the compounds and antioxidant properties in chaga play a big role in supporting our immune system and maintaining its overall function. So I'm a big fan of the combination of chaga and lion's mane in Four Sigmatic's coffee, which is also third-party tested for mold, yeast, bacteria, and other toxins to make sure that they're only offering the highest quality product to their customers. I'm so happy to have worked out an exclusive offer with Four Sigmatic on their best-selling Lion's Mane and Chaga coffee, and this is just for the Fullest podcast listeners. Receive up to 39% off their best-selling Lion's Mane coffee bundles. To claim this deal, you must go to foursigmatic.com/the fullest. This offer is only for the Fullest listeners and is not available on their regular website. So go to foursigmatic.com/the fullest. foursigmatic.com/the fullest, and fuel your productivity and creativity with some delicious mushroom coffee. The full discount will be applied at checkout. I love that approach to being a lifelong student and just cultivating your own, your own practice and what it is for you personally and how it turns out for your clients, and just always being open to learning more. I think when people start to, you know, toot their own horn and act like they're the end all be all expert, then that's when well, to question things, like not to
Mhm.
question people, but just a reminder, I think, at the end of the day, and this is kind of what we always want to inspire in people at the fullest is like find your own way because what works for another person is not going to work for you. And this idea of like one size medicine is not working. Clearly, it's not
Mhm.
working. And it's especially working for our minorities. It's especially not working for our most vulnerable population. And I think that's the sad part about all of this is that I don't think we're realizing that when we talk about things like universal health care, which we absolutely need, we need to like look at that more holistically. And I love to ask practitioners such as yourself what your thought process is on all that if you're interested in getting into politics, which I always end up doing because it all, it's our society that has a direct relationship with how we are.
Yeah. Well, let's see if I kind of answer your question with these thoughts. Um, I think that something that's always mattered to me and that I've tried to work into, the costs of my sessions, the definitely the topics that I cover, the approaches that I use, the herbs that I use, the price points of things that I work with, all of that. The intention is to make the information accessible and empowering to people. So my interest is in, and this happens with all of my clients, my interest is in educating people to a point that they are then able to not only, not need me anymore, um, but also to more comfortably navigate the whole world of marketing in wellness marketing or health marketing, because the health industry, I mean, from a lot of different angles, is just, it's confusing, and it always has been. And you get these trends and these diets and these supplements and superfoods and a bunch of different things that are just people, should I eat better, should I not eat better, should I be keto, should I not be keto? Anyway, my intention is to teach people things that are lifelong tools, things that never go out of style. They're never out of trend. Like, these are basic human self-care, nutritional, and kind of preventative medicine functions. These are like inherent abilities that we can have as people, but a lot of us have forgotten or never learned. So, something like understanding what the body's signals are saying and then working, at a root cause level, as opposed to the mentality right now, even in the natural health world, the mentality is give me a remedy for a symptom. What's the herb for X? What's the medicine for X? And if I can break people out of that thought process and say, what is the cause of X? And how do we resolve that instead? That's something that's going to serve them for the rest of their life, regardless of what they have access to and regardless of what's popular in the health and wellness industry. So I'm really trying to work with kind of fundamental wellness practices. And then on a basic level, I'm not accessible to everyone, but I do try to be as accessible as I can, afford to be. So I have sliding scale for my sessions, sliding scale for my events. And then, like I mentioned, I talk about food medicine most of the time. I talk about herbs that you can get at, any grocery store, cinnamon and garlic and those kinds of things. And we can get, deep and talk about, Ayurveda or shamanism or something like that. But if somebody doesn't have access or interest in that, then I don't need to go there to help you be healthier. So hopefully that kind of answers
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. I like that you brought up like garlic and cinnamon because these are, herbs and spices and such things that are part of different cultures. So when we talk about like minority groups that are, lacking resources to have access to this stuff, it's like that's what you can get at it's part of a lot of different food and the food culture. So it's just about
Mhm.
like thinking about it and having access to that information. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, what's so important to us too is providing the information so that it's free so that anyone could go on and read it. It's just about getting the word out, and I love everything that you share, your newsletter. I think it's so on point. And I'm so curious because you are based in New York. I want to know what went down in spring, like in March when everything started happening. Like, what was that like for you as someone who obviously so many people look to for this information of what to do? And, there's so much fear, and the fear obviously kicks in and can make you sick. And so I'm curious how that was for you.
Yeah. It was scary, it was definitely a scary time. And let's see, I think, for the first 2 months, I was very, very busy talking about immunity, and everybody wanted to know every single thing, possible to boost and support the immune system. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's really just what I talked about, I think, with most of my clients and kind of, you know, companies or partners or, content providers, anybody who sort of reached out and said, can you please speak on the topic of immunity? So that was a big focus. And then there was a lot of our cafe is closed still since then. But we have an online store, and the online store was very, very busy then. I think people were stocking up on supplies and products to help their health, you know. And I think maybe the most interesting point there, because probably none of that is a surprise, but the most interesting point was that, I said this in the newsletter, so you probably saw this too. There were a lot of folks, and there still are, who claim to know how to, cure or prevent or, treat this coronavirus naturally. And I am not going to proclaim that they are wrong, but I am not one of those people. And I was definitely, and still am, of the belief that we can do everything that we can do to make ourselves very, very well and our immune systems, resilient. But I am not going to claim that I have the, prevention for this
Yeah.
virus or the cure. So I definitely wanted to make that very clear to people. And I think a lot of folks were kind of asking me to, get on the bandwagon of some of the natural wellness practitioners that were in favor of these alternative medicines and kind of promote them. And, I was very resistant to that because I just think that we, had so much, and we still have so much to learn about what we're dealing with. So.
Yeah, but I do think that an important point that you made though is this idea of prevention and supporting your immune system and boosting it, because I will say that it is super important that that there's a distinction between curing and preventing, or not, not even saying that you can prevent it because you never know, but just supporting. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was even seen as controversial to even say that there is such a way to boost your immune system, because as someone in the wellness world, I saw many headlines saying that's not true, that's not possible, there's no way you can boost your immune system. And that is the type of information that really bums me out, because
Mm-hmm.
we just spoke about getting information out to people so that they have the access to the resources that they need to make the decisions that they need to make. But when talking about your, basic tenets of things that are going to keep you hopefully feeling good and feeling well and support you, when those topics are being censored, then it's definitely something to, you know, share, whether it's, not in your newsletter or not, but just at a dinner party with a friend or a conversation with anyone. I think that these are important things to bring up, because I think at the end of the day, talking about making your own just be empowering yourself to make decisions on your body and trusting that trusting different experts, whether they are obviously doctors at the hospital that are seeing it firsthand and telling you what's going on, or a clinical herbalist such as yourself that's seeing people that might not have it but are just coming to support themselves. I think just like looking at things from all angles, and I think we forget to do that as a
Mhm.
society.
Mhm. Yeah, we definitely do. It's give me the quick fix preventatively, or give me the quick fix cure. And yeah, and the immune system, I mean, it is a nuanced point. I think there's a lot we can do. I mean, I know there's a lot we can do to make it healthy and strong. I think sometimes you hear like boosting and kind of, I don't know, amplifying or something the immune system, and that can be a negative thing for someone with an overactive immune system. So of course that's not what we're trying
Yeah.
to do. Um, we're looking for things like medicinal mushrooms, that are immunomodulators that are going to help it be, fully functioning, but not overactive. I saw a little bit of that conversation happening, but, no health practitioner worth their worth anything is going to, give somebody something that's going to make their immune system overactive. It's like, that's not what we do.
I like that you brought that up. I know medicinal mushrooms really like it's so interesting because as trendy as it is, and it's the truth. Like it really does. They're amazing, and they do
Oh, they
help
are.
people, and are so yeah. I mean, they're trending for a reason, and
Mhm.
expecting the trend to like go away, to be honest. And it's really, I think, here to stay, which is amazing. I mean, even back in the day, like my husband, I don't know what you think about muscle testing actually. What do you think about muscle testing?
I don't work with it very much, or I mean, I don't work with it. So I think it's interesting, and I respect it. Yeah, nothing negative to say, but it's not something that's like part
Yeah.
of my practice. Yeah.
Yeah. I find it super interesting. Like when I met my husband, we were like in high school, he had some muscle testing done down at like, I don't know if you guys have Pharmaca in New York. Um,
Hmm.
or I mean, actually in Washington where he got the
I
muscle
think we
testing at
do.
Pharmaca.
Yeah.
And so funny. And I didn't really know anything about it. It was like, pre being really all into this stuff. And I couldn't believe because he has like some deviated septum and sinus issues, and it just immediately like cleared it up. And so that was an interesting experience for us coming into it, not really believing it and seeing what a difference it made. And again, like doubting, just I don't think it's like necessarily great to go into something doubting it, but sometimes when it surprises you, it really is amazing because then you're like sold on it forever. So
Yeah.
I've definitely had that experience with muscle testing. I would have never thought that. I still think it's interesting how it all works. But another thing I absolutely love and I wanted to talk to you about is just your gummies. Like I love them so much. I'm obsessed with them. And I want to know what the thought process was behind that. Like, is it something that you started doing for yourself and then you brought it out to the world? Is that the first product that you launched as part of Supernatural? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad you love them. They're definitely, they might be the most popular thing that we do. So that's good. Yeah, so the way it went with the herbals is, back I mentioned back when I first started in wellness, I did have a product line that included teas and tinctures and like natural toothpaste and room sprays and all these different things. And it was going well, but it was getting to the point where I was going to have to kind of scale it out of just making it myself and, doing the labels myself and, getting into a proper production sort of facility and process with it. And I kind of looked at everything that I was producing, and I was like, I like all of this, but it doesn't fully and like most accurately represent what I'm trying to do here. It's not totally conveying my message. And I need to commit to a product or a product line that really represents my philosophy. So I stopped producing all of it and I just waited. I didn't know what it was going to be that I was going to do as product, but I just waited. And probably 2 years went by and the idea of a gummy took shape. And it makes sense because I work so much with food and herbs and sort of convenience, practicality, ease, and that whole, back to that conversation of meeting people where they are and being accessible. I was at my cafe and I would watch people with tincture bottles just be confused. Am I supposed to put this in my mouth? Am I supposed to put it on my skin? How much? And even tinctures, if you're into tinctures, you think it's the easiest thing in the world, but for somebody who's new to that, it's still confusing. And I was like, that's not easy enough. I want it to be even more accessible to people and clear. The idea of a gummy, you don't have to explain to anyone. It's so straightforward. Everyone knows what to do with those. So, got the idea.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. My
Um,
son who's 2 years old, so yeah, you definitely don't have to explain it to anyone.
yeah, kids love them. And they're totally fine for kids. I mean, I wouldn't give the energy gummies to the kids, but the calm, the Nerveless are
No,
great for kids.
yeah.
So I had the concept, and then I basically had the blend of the herbs. It's one of my most popular kind of best-selling blends. I do it in tea, and I used to have a tincture for it, and I would serve it at the cafe. So I hired a sort of food designer to work with me on the recipe. Somebody with a really sophisticated palate. I wanted these to be adult. I mean, they're good for kids, but there's fresh tarragon in them and, lavender flowers and absolutely no, gum and weird stabilizers or, anything else you would expect that I wouldn't put in there, no processed sugar or anything like that, no gelatin. So I needed somebody who could help me develop a range of these with really sophisticated flavors. I didn't want it to be just strawberry, lemon, and grape, So this is, the Nerveless is honeyed lavender tarragon. The energy flavor kind of tastes like a mulled wine. We use actually fresh vegetable juices in it, along with a lot of different herbs, medicinal mushrooms, adaptogens, lots of things. And I actually have a third gummy that's fully ready to go. We just haven't launched it yet. And that one is sort of citrus and grassy and just beautiful. So if you like the
Oh
flavor
my gosh,
experience as well. So anyway, so she
that
helped me develop the
sounds so
recipe.
good.
Yeah, hopefully this year. I'm just kind of waiting to see what the world is doing before we try to put out another, thing. And then we went into branding them and producing them, and now they're produced by hand, but in large batches in a kitchen in Greenpoint, and we have stores all over the world, actually.
Congratulations. I really feel the benefits of them. I really believe in them. And I think you're right. It's not something you have to explain. It's not overwhelming. You just take it and you get a little treat too. So it's really fun. I'm so excited for the new flavor. I can't wait. You'll have to tell me when it comes out.
I will. I will.
But
We'll
what
send you some.
happened? Yeah, what inspired the cafe? I mean, other than there's nowhere really to go in New York, so I'm glad that I wish I could experience going there, and bummed that it's closed, but I can't make it to New York anyways during this time. But yeah, what inspired you to go all in on opening a cafe? That's a huge thing to take on. And I'm curious what your plans are. Are you definitely going to open it up when things go back, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah. So the cafe, it was actually, it's funny. It's sort of been this, I feel like it's been the theme of a lot of my wellness sort of journey. The cafe wasn't something I was trying to do or necessarily wanted to do, but somebody approached me and asked me if I would do it. So the first Supernatural Cafe was in Manhattan, and it was at this yoga studio called Womb Center. Amazing location, you know, across the street from Whole Foods on Bowery and Houston. And they have a sort of reception or greeting area in the front of the yoga studio. And we had met each other just a couple of times, and they liked what I was doing, and they said, you know, would you like to talk about taking over this space and creating, you know, a cafe here, or some kind of tea bar or something, you know, something like that. And I said yes, and that was how the first cafe was born. So it's, you know, it's like a little apothecary. You can come in and buy bulk herbs. You can have drinks. You can sit. You can meet with me and have wellness sessions. And then as I was doing that, I think, you know, about a year went by, and then Industry City approached me and said, we love what you're doing here. Do you want to come out to Industry City and have your own space instead of being a shop in shop, you know, expand, because they have a great, you know, they have a ton of property and they're really supportive of small businesses, and they wanted to, you know, have Supernatural out there. And so once again, you know, I said yes. And closed down the Womb Center shop. I didn't feel capable of like well managing multiple locations yet. So we're only now in Industry City, but we're our own space, and there's retail and, you know, beverages and snacks, and you can sit in there, and of course you can meet with me and you can get, you know, herbs. But it closed in March. You know, we all went into quarantine then, and I do intend to reopen. Yes, I think what I'm going to do is see what the state of New York is in about a month, in mid-September, and make a decision then. We will either open. But I think there's a lot of sentiment that it's possible New York might close back down again for the fall, winter. And if that's the case, I can't open and then close again. But we will reopen either then and stay open, or we will reopen in 2021 when the rest of the world comes back online. And meanwhile, we're an online shop, and everything is just happening virtually. And I'm, you know, shipping out of my home apothecary where everything started. So very, very grateful to be able to say that we will reopen. But as of now, that's the plan. Yeah.
That's such good news to hear, that you're just, you know, staying positive and planning to either open now or later, but you know that you're going to open it up and have, you know, faith that things are going to go back. Probably not all the way to normal right away, but people need what you're offering them. So I think that's great that you're going to open up. Well, thank you so much for, you know, hopping on and chatting with me. I'm so happy I got to know you, and I'm really excited for the new flavor of herbals coming out. And yeah, I just really appreciate you and your voice in this space. So thanks so much for sharing with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And the feeling is mutual. So I'm excited to see you when that happens. And meanwhile, we'll just be sending love back and forth across the coast.